And it's a good morning to Niki Bezzant, a fellow Kiwi here in New Zealand. So for any of the Americans out there, I know that you love listening to us. You've got double it today. And I want to welcome Niki to the Sexy Aging podcast. She is an author, a writer, a journalist, a speaker. What else? Do you have any special skills that I don't know about? Something you want to share right now?
Special skills, my goodness.
Do you do baking? Oh, you actually take amazing photos of amazing food in New Zealand. I start salivating.
Thank you. Yeah, no, well, I started out as I have had a long career as a food writer as well. So I've written a couple of recipe books. So the food thing is also, just part of my jam. I'm not a baker, really.
Leave it to someone else.
Yeah, but other kinds of cooking that I love all that.
Yeah. So we are catching up today because you've written a bestseller book called This Changes Everything. It's hot. The Honest Guide to Menopause and Perimenopause, and it went to the #1 bestsellers in New Zealand book list. So congratulations, Niki. That's absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was a big thrill for me too, actually. Really big thrill.
It's definitely something to be celebrated. And I think while you get to celebrate it because you poured your heart and soul into it, and I know that we're going to talk about that, I think for women in New Zealand, who've managed to go into any bookshop in New Zealand and pick up a copy, they're probably celebrating because you are telling their story, especially women who are going through the menopause transition. So it is something for all of us to celebrate, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had some wonderful feedback actually, which has made all of the work, feel really worthwhile. It's important to me to do meaningful work and to help people. And I've had wonderful feedback from women saying just that it's really helped them. So that makes me feel, really good, actually.
That's the reason for the long hours and the research and the study and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so just share a little bit of your background. I know we've already touched that that you're a writer, that you write for certain publications, that you're actually still doing that today. Is that something that you were doing from a young age, or where did that all start from?
Sure, yeah. And I've always wanted to be a writer since I was little. In fact, since I was a child, really, I've loved writing, and that's been the thing that I get the most joy from. So I knew I wanted to be a writer, and I have had a sort of circuitous path through different forms of writing throughout my career, but that's always been something that I have done. And then I was a magazine editor for many years. I was the founding editor for Healthy Food Guide magazine, which was a very successful food mag. It's still going, actually, in Australia.
Still going.
UK. Yeah.
Yep.
So that sort of got me into the health space, I guess, writing around health and nutrition. And then it's kind of naturally just flowed on from there over the years. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I've been out of the country for, 2 decades, but I feel like I had heard of you. And I think it was because of the food writing and also through health, maybe a little bit through fitness. I lost touch with sort of what was going on in New Zealand, but I do remember hearing about you and some of the things that you were writing about. I want to dive now into probably your greatest work to date. I think it's, we've already said yay for this book and everyone thinks it's the hottest thing out. So my question is this a personal reflection on a time of your life that you started to dive into what the fuck is going on with my body and my mind, and why isn't there anything to help me with this? Is that where you kind of got started with your book?
It is really, yeah. It was there's been a long project, and it took me about 2 years start to finish to do this. So I actually started pre-pandemic, which is a weird thing. Like just before the lockdown, the first lockdown in 2020, was when the idea kind of formed, and it came from. I was 49 then, so I'm 51 now. So it was that age where these things are starting to happen that you just like, we don't know what's going on, weird things are happening when you're in your body and things, and conversations are starting, conversations with my friends who are similar age, all that sort of thing was in the background. And I had a chat to to the head of publishing at Penguin, Claire Murdoch, and she said, listen, there hasn't been a menopause book written in New Zealand for 15 years. Beverly Lawton, the excellent menopause doctor, had written one, but it was back in 2005. And so, things have moved on since then, and there just really isn't anything. And so I went, oh, okay, oh, that's interesting. And I went away and did some research on actually what was out there. And, went to the library, had a look in the bookshops, had a look at the books that were available, had a look at the information that was available online. And there was really
crickets.
Yeah, I mean, not just crickets, but just stuff that it didn't feel relevant to me and my generation, our generation.
Yes.
It didn't feel like it really was speaking to me. What was there? And so I went, you know what, this is definitely something that I want to look at and delve into. And so it just sort of started from there. And then we realized that there is definitely something worth doing here. And why at that point, we're talking about it a lot more now, but at that point, really no one was talking about this topic. And in fact, I was told by a lot of people, because I thought in my wisdom that I could have written a book and done a podcast at the same time. That turned out to be nonsense, but I pitched the book and I pitched the podcast idea to quite a few of my media contacts, and I was told pretty much no one's interested in this. Why would anybody want to listen? Basically, why would anybody want to listen to that? Which we now know obviously is rubbish as well. But there was little appetite amongst mainstream media, let's say, and particularly men in mainstream media.
Yes, well that's the thing, isn't it? It's like that's where the block is that why would we want to listen to that? And my answer would be, so how's your wife going with that?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, do you know a woman?
yeah
Anyway, so that's kind of how it started, and so the book came from that, and then it was really just a lot of research and talking to women. I talked to hundreds of women. I did a survey.
Yes, I want to talk about the survey. So that's actually it was absolutely brilliant. So when I first started reading the book, that was one of the first things was, okay, so you really did the research across New Zealand and you put a survey out there. Putting a survey together is actually a really difficult thing around this particular topic, because there are 35 known symptoms and counting, rising. So where do you get started?
I know.
So the survey, it comes back, and is there anything that really surprises you?
I had already done a lot of work before I did the survey, and I'd already talked to a lot of women, so I don't know that there were surprises. It kind of confirmed what I had already discovered, I think, which was, and the surprising things out of the whole piece of work, were really how many women knew so little. How many of us get to this point in our lives and actually go, as you said, what the fuck is going on here? Well, I don't know anything about this. I mean, literally, we knew next to nothing. And I was the same when I started, really. I had only just heard of perimenopause as a concept, and I didn't know anything really about what was going to happen in menopause, except that my periods would stop and I probably would have some hot flushes and maybe be a bit grumpy. And that was the extent of a lot of women's knowledge as well. And so when it hit them, all these other things hit them, and for some women quite hard and in quite really difficult ways. It was a complete blindside. They just didn't see it coming. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing, which was quite sad, is how many women felt alone about it, who felt that they were the only one suffering in this way, or who thought that they were going crazy, or who thought they were getting dementia, all these kinds of things, because it wasn't being spoken about. So those two things were quite surprising.
I had a really similar experience. So living in Asia, even talking about periods is kind of taboo,
right?
So and obviously over time I had my sort of cohort of Asian girlfriends increased, because over time your expatriate people move on. But I had a kind of a close group of expatriate girlfriends, and the whole time I was living there, nobody spoke about it.
Right.
Which is super interesting, right? And I would have been sort of middle of the age group. So our age would be sort of 40 through to about 52. That was the group, and nobody spoke about it. And I was going through it, and I didn't know who to talk to about it. And I'd actually, like you, never heard of the word. I think menopause was a word I was familiar with, but I associated with much older women, like maybe late 50s.
Yeah.
And perimenopause, I'd never heard of the word, and I just feel so let down, because being a fitness professional, like, why have we not heard about that? We need to understand how that affects our health and wellness generally, right? So that kind of blew me away. And I still get a little thing in my tummy when I think, like, why did I not know? You know, and then nobody spoke about it. And then, of course, you know, if I do bring it up with my sort of Asian girlfriends, they're just like, oh, no, that doesn't happen to us. I'm like, yeah, actually it does.
yeah. I mean, it happens to everybody, right? It happens to everybody with ovaries. So it's a kind of there are some cultural aspects around the place as well.
Yeah.
But I do think that because it's all tied up with aging, and this idea of women's relevance as we get older in society becoming diminished, and all these kinds of quite misogynistic things. It's no wonder that we've internalized a lot of that as women over the years. But I do think that our generation is going to be the one to break out of that. And I really hope that the women coming after us, generation coming after us, and younger women are going to be much more empowered to talk about this and to know what to expect as well. I mean, that's what part of my mission now is, to really help younger women know what's coming and feel empowered about
empowered, not afraid.
Yes,
not freaked out, like, oh shit, something not to look forward to about aging.
I
know, like, let's change the narrative. So I'm going to join arms with you on that, Niki, because I do feel that the people that I want to reach out to are the women entering the 40s. You know, because that for me was a defining moment of life. I think a lot of women feel, okay, 40, there's trepidation with that whole 40, but I think if you flip it on its head, it's naughty 40s. It's wonderful. It's you really kind of know who you are and where you want to spend your time and what you want to be doing, and physically as well. That's actually also, you've had kids. I had a pregnancy at 42, so that was a bit of an effort. But I think in your 40s, a lot of women have had their kids, and they're starting to kind of take a little bit more care of their own wellness and find those pockets of time to, pay attention to maybe some core training or some strength training or something. And they start to feel really empowered in that way, but they don't realize that they've only got a shorter period. It's not that long before things go a bit AWOL. And I feel like I want to share content and information which is going to keep them in that empowered mental state, which is wonderful, but get them ready for the physical bumpy road.
I think that's a really good point too, because as you've identified, it's an opportunity when you're perimenopause, really. You've got an opportunity to get yourself in as good a shape and as good a state health-wise as possible before you get into that tricky transition. And I feel, and I don't know, I don't really have evidence in terms of research to back this up, but my feeling is that probably it's a little bit like pregnancy, in the sense that the healthier you are going in, the better time you are likely to have through the transition. And certainly out the other side. And so I kind of, one of my messages in the book too is that this is an opportunity for you to get yourself set up in some really good habits for the next, maybe half of your life you still have left. So there's a bit of that as well. I think we have to not just think about this transition that we're going through, but actually what happens after. And how we support our health for that time too, so that we are kick-ass old ladies. I want to be still doing all the things that I do now, and still being able to use my body in the way that I want to use it, as long as I can. So it's about that healthy aging as well.
No, I mean, and that's the best way to frame the whole aging conversation. It's healthy aging, and it's longevity, and it's like bringing more to your life and to those relationships that you have. Just continue to grow it and grow it. Hey, so yesterday, I think today actually, this is just in a segue. Today we launched a podcast episode on dying.
Okay.
But it really just highlighted that when you get to a point where you actually have to open up the topic on dying, it does make you go, okay, so if the end is just over there, and who knows how far away it is, what are all the things I'm doing today to live my purpose, you know?
Yeah.
And where I'm going with this is I do feel like that for me personally, the menopause transition has highlighted that even more. It's like it's probably the best thing that's come out of this shit show is that real deep knowing of, hey, life is to be lived, and there's some pretty awesome stuff that we could be doing. There are great people we could be talking to. There is amazing opportunities, and I'm not over the hill. How do you feel about that? I'd like to get your take on that too. I think we're kind of similar, but we've never spoken.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And I feel like a lot of women, the women that I've talked to who are out the other side, you know, who've got through the transition, through the bumpy road, as you say, many of them do feel like, hey, this is awesome now, you know, like my life is really good, and I am, you know, I'm just going to embrace it. And I want that for myself as well. I mean, I would put myself in late perimenopause at this stage, so I've probably still got a way to go. Yeah, are you the same?
Yeah, same.
Yeah, based on what's going on with my cycles and my body and everything, you know, that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm hoping that it's not going to get too much rockier, but I honestly don't know. You know, none of us know. But I do feel like, you know, this is a power time. This is a time when we can really, we can find ourselves. I think women lose themselves a little bit sometimes in midlife because there's a lot going on, as I'm sure, you know, everyone that you've talked to has said. We are handling a lot. We're juggling tons of stuff at this time in our life. We've got career, which is probably at its height. We've got families, we've got kids, we've got relationships, we've got community, we've got friends, all these things. We've probably got parents who are older who maybe need some more support, and that's only going to continue. And so it's a really, really, one of the women I interviewed, she said it's a very dense time. And that's such a good description. It's a really dense time of life, midlife. I mean, you get this sort of physical hormonal change that comes upon us and sort of throws everything up into disarray, and it's very easy to lose yourself. And so I feel now, I feel like I might have had that experience a little earlier. Probably a few years ago before I left my marriage. And I had lost myself a little bit, I think, in that relationship. And so now I know myself much better, and so I feel like I'm gonna be fine going through this bit because I know who I am. Oh, that's really beautiful. I know, you know, whoever's listening to that will feel really uplifted, actually, because I was just sort of feeling like, wow, you're touching on something pretty vulnerable, you know. And I was just thinking, I think while the physical symptoms are really challenging for a lot of women, and it takes up a lot of personal energy and thinking about, oh, I'm having a hot flush now, or I'm not sleeping. I mean, those physical symptoms impact you, most women, pretty tough. But I personally feel that the mental symptoms are probably the worst part of it. Would you agree? I would agree. And actually it's interesting because when I first started researching for the book, when I first started reaching out to women to say who would like to talk to me about menopause, the women who came forward, what they wanted to talk about was the mental health struggles. You know, was the anxiety, the depression, the rage, the low mood, the feeling just not themselves. All of that mental stuff was the first thing that came up. And I was surprised by that too, because I hadn't at that point had not realized how much of a mental toll perimenopause can take on women. So now, of course, I know that that's one of the main things. People feel like they're going crazy, but that I think that's definitely true, that the mental struggle is probably even more difficult than the physical, because women are used to physical struggles, right? We have babies, we have periods. We know all of that shit, and we just get
Yeah.
on with it. We're used to getting on with it that way. And for sure, some of the physical stuff is pretty awful, and the flushing and the not sleeping. The sleep is a really, really bad one. But the mental health stuff is the worst, I think, for most women when they're struggling. Yeah.
No, I would absolutely agree. And I feel like if, say, for example, if we have significant others, partners, husbands in our lives, if they knew that part and the part that they play in support role for women going through perimenopause, it really is about the mental support for them, then I think if there's one thing that we can do together, me through the podcast, you through your book, to try to highlight that this is everyone understanding, you know, menopause, and this is how we support each other. I'm actually really surprised. I find Kiwi women generally a little reserved, and so the fact that so many have sort of said to you, like, I really want to talk about this part. I'm grateful that they did highlight that for you, and it became, you know, an important thing to talk about. So
yeah, I am too. And I think that what it shows is that just no one's ever asked them before. You know, like I've had women open up to me about their vaginas and about their, you know, about their sex life and all of these intimate things. Women I don't know, strangers, you know, I've been able to interview them on all of that stuff. And I just think they're so willing to talk about it because no one's ever asked them about it before, not even their doctor, you know.
That's it, isn't it? They've been bottling it inside, holding it inside, and then someone sort of gives them a forum and an opportunity. And they get to be more anonymous, I guess.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I haven't used any last names or anything in the book, and it is really the message is that you're not alone. Okay, so when you read this or any of the books, and you read the stories about other women, and then you can understand that you're not alone. And also, I mean, I think the really important thing, and that this here is there's so many things that you can do for all of these issues that you can have. The message needs to be, look, you don't have to suffer in silence, and you don't have to just put up with it. There's actually tons of stuff that you can do that will help, and it doesn't have to be medication. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. It can range all the way through from like just management stuff to, you know, medication. And there's all kinds of things that will be a jigsaw puzzle of stuff that fits together that will probably help, you know, and everyone's different.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think this is where we're up to. And I guess we've both been going through the research and the conversations for a number of years, maybe 2-3 years, like solid. And so I've been watching the conversation swing around, okay, you should do these things naturally. And now, and here's HRT. And now you should really be doing this.
Yeah.
And I kind of sit back and observe, and you're probably similar. I think we're similar, and go, okay, so what does the science say? What does the research say? What do the experts say? And what do I know personally about my body and what is good for me, and make a decision based around that. So we're really lucky that we are in this situation where we've been able to reach out to those experts and find out the information that works for us personally. I decided to take HRT and I haven't looked back. Prior to that, I did 95% of the recommended wellness management things for menopause, and there was that 5% that was still messing with me, and HRT's the icing on the cake. So I've been very open about that, but I do feel like, okay, we don't really need to be swinging between one camp and the other, right? Like I think if we can open up the conversation so women understand that there is a myriad of options, and when you can talk to the right people, find the right information, and make the right decision for you, that's probably, but that's where I'm at. I'm just like, I
think that's such a good approach, Tracy, because really everyone is different, and you're the only one that can make decisions about your own health, and you know yourself, you know your own body. Like I'm not on HRT at the moment, but I wouldn't hesitate to go onto it, and if I need it at some point, you know, which I may do. Right now, my symptoms I am managing through other ways, you know, and a lot of those, pardon me, a lot of those lifestyle things are really helping, and do really help just with general health anyway, and they're things that I have always done. But for sure, I will look at other options if I need them. I would never be shy about doing that, and I feel completely comfortable doing that. And really, the answer is never just one thing. Like, you know, I've been writing about health and nutrition for 25 years, right?
Yeah.
It's never one thing. There's never one solution. There's never one magic food. There's never one magic supplement. There's never one thing that solves all the problems. It's always going to be multiple things, as you've identified, you know, all of your lifestyle things, all of your exercise, your diet, your sleep and your stress management, all these things are really important. And then maybe you need a little bit of extra help on top of that, and that can be the HRT. Or other medications, you know, there's tons of other medications as well that are prescribed that are non-hormonal. So it's just an individual thing for everyone. And it's never, ever going to be one magic solution. I think we always like to look for one magic solution. And that goes for all kinds of things. You know, weight loss is a big thing. I'm sure you've had a lot of experience in that area too. Everyone wants a magic solution for weight loss, but there, you know what, there isn't a magic solution. It's always going to be, you know, a range of things that you do consistently over time.
Yep. Just chipping away at it, and then you can see and feel the benefits, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what was the toughest symptom for you? And you've talked about, you know, that you've been able to implement some management lifestyle tools to help you with the symptoms. So can you highlight the core symptom, and what do you actually do to support that?
The toughest symptom. Okay, so I haven't had a lot of flush. I mean, I have had a few flushes and night sweats and things, but that's not really been major for me so far. The thing that has been the most probably troublesome for me, you know, it's kind of a lot of things. I mean, the brain fog is one thing that is quite alarming, especially in my work, you know, because I'm a communicator. Yeah. And it's very frustrating to lose words. And I don't know that I've really nailed the solution to that one yet. I have had some joint pain issues, which have been fairly, you know, that's been distressing. And the solutions for that are partly medication, like just, you know, pain management medication, but also a lot to do with exercise. You know, the exercise really helps me there, moving my body, keeping things strong, keeping my muscles strong, you know. That's all really important there, because it's really annoying to be like, you know, your knees hurt when you go downstairs. That's like an old lady thing.
Right. You're like, I'm not freaking 90.
So I wasn't very keen on that whole scenario. So definitely the exercise has been the main thing that's helped me with that. So far anyway, and I there is some evidence that HRT can help with that, but doesn't always.
Okay, so I'll put my hand up and say those were sleep challenges, brain fog, which I think there's a link, and joint pain were my top three.
Really.
And the reason that I took HRT.
Okay, so that's helped for your joints.
Because I'm in the fitness industry and I'm still kind of teaching and role modeling and stuff, so it's not like I can kind of go in and, you know, participate if I'm teaching the class. There's a certain amount of physicality, and I just didn't like the way it was feeling, and I thought, well, seriously, I'm done, like my whole life spent here, and it's like finished because my knee hurts, or my hip, my back, and then the sleeping, they were kind of impacting on each other. So of course, the sore joints actually hurts at night, and you lie down and it's like freaking painful. So that was the thing, and I can honestly say, hand on heart, that has helped tremendously.
Oh, well, that's really good to know. Okay.
But I mean, I think there's lots of lifestyle things, like there's definitely dietary things to look into to, you know, boost your omega-3, increase the amount of olive oil, but you know, that's a shitload of olive oil, I'm telling you. That's a lot. You have to like literally drink the stuff.
I know. I mean, the anti-inflammatory kind of a diet, I mean, that's kind of a baseline for me anyway.
Same.
But I mean, that's for sure, that's a thing that is important. But again, you have to balance up, you know, drinking tons of olive oil, as you say, with the calorific value of that olive oil.
Hello. So you and I probably pay attention to some of the things that are happening in the UK, and it seems like there's a massive, well, I don't know, like I try to think, is it because I've jumped into the rabbit hole of menopause that now I see it all around me? And in the UK, of course, there's a lot of things happening across sort of education, healthcare, government support, the workplace. So there is a real ramping up in the conversation, and I feel like women of our age are getting really quite assertive.
It's amazing
with the messaging. Yeah. So it's amazing that we're on opposite ends of the world, and yet there is quite a lot of influence to stuff that's starting to happen in New Zealand.
Yeah.
In your personal opinion, what is the very first thing we could pay attention to in New Zealand to make a difference for women who are going through the menopause transition right here, right now?
I think it's two things really, and it's starting already. And the first thing is education of women. You know, women need to know what's going on, need to understand what's going on in their bodies. I mean, it's what you're doing with your work, it's what I'm doing with my book and my speaking. It's actually helping people understand what this is all about, so that we then are empowered to go and seek help. And then the second part of that puzzle is that the medical establishment and GPs in particular need to be a little bit more up with the play on treatment options, because it is patchy, I would say. It is very patchy, the kind of response that you're going to get when you seek help with a GP, particularly if you're asking for hormone therapy, or is hormone therapy going to help me, or is hormone therapy right for me? You know, the education level amongst doctors is really low.
Yeah.
Or it's just patchy. They have to be interested in it to seek out the information on it, and they have to really work a bit hard to get to be up with the latest research, and that's not ideal when you're looking for help. And so women are getting wrong information from the GP when they go. Sometimes they're being told, oh no, we don't prescribe that, that's not good for you, which is
or you're too
true.
young,
or you're too young, or oh no, you can't be in menopause yet,
or you need a blood test.
yeah, or
Yeah.
have some antidepressants, you know.
Yes, I had a girlfriend in the
Happens a
US
lot.
who was prescribed antidepressants, and she knew that she was in menopause because, you know, we've been in conversation. She listens to the podcast, and there was quite a few sort of experts who had gone on and talked about, you know, the symptoms, HRT, all these kind of things. And so she said, oh, so I went off to my doctor, and the first thing he prescribed me was antidepressants. And she goes, I'm not fucking depressed.
Yeah. I know, that's so annoying, but that is a common story. Yeah, and the thing about blood tests is also a common story. You know, taking a blood test is useless and it's not going to work, but still, even some doctors say, oh well, we'll just test your hormones.
I had that.
Yeah, I mean, it tells them nothing. It gives them a snapshot of where your hormones are on that one day at that one time.
Yeah. So
I think that the level of education amongst doctors is something that needs to be addressed at a systemic level. So, you know, 50% of your patients are going to be women. If you're a doctor, you should know the basics of women's health, and this is one of the things that will happen to every single woman. And so it's not acceptable that they don't know how to treat that. Some of them.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's global, by the way.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with people, you would too, people in America. It's very much the same. There is this level of misunderstanding, particularly around HRT amongst medical professionals, which is really shocking and shouldn't be the case. Yeah, so they're ahead of us in the UK on that score. And it's certainly all the conversations they're having in public life and in politics and at policy level and in workplaces is really helping that. So hopefully we'll get there as well.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. And I think, and I'm optimistic that we're going to see that accelerate quite quickly.
Yeah, I hope so too.
You know, even just the last couple of years, like with you, so when you started your book, when you started researching, the book's out, and I feel like there's actually been, it looks like there's been quite a lot of groundswell already. And
I think there has. I think there definitely has. It's been just even in the last sort of even 6 months, it's been just a lot more conversation going on, which can only be a good thing.
It's
and people
only
go, menopause again. You're talking about menopause all the time. It's like, yeah, we are. We haven't talked about it for 20 years. We're talking about it now, and we're not going to stop.
Yeah, because, you know, my girl is, my daughter's 17. So we had the bookends. We had we had the, you know, the periods with the perimenopause mum and and everyone's okay with her moodiness and like not acceptable over here, mum. But the good thing is she knows everything about perimenopause, and she will call me up. She's in boarding, and she'll call me up and say, so I think that this teacher is like really perimenopausal right now, mum. And I said, well, just, you know, give her a copy of the book.
Yeah,
You know,
and be kind to her, you know.
be kind to her. Yeah. And
Be
yeah, she
understanding.
says, yeah, I can see it. She goes, I'm sitting back and I'm watching her losing the words to explain what's and she's
Right.
yeah. And
Yeah,
so yeah, I feel proud for that, because, you know,
that's awesome.
she's going to grow up and it's like a stage of life, and they're going to know so much more and have a much better understanding and empathy for the woman around them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, talking
Yeah.
to our daughters is really important, and our sons, you know, talking
Yes.
to,
Yeah.
everyone needs to understand this more. So I think, you know, just keep talking about it, all of us.
Yeah. So when you say that, people tell you, oh, you're talking about it again. Don't stop.
I'm not stopping. No.
We're not stopping.
Definitely
Hey,
not.
Niki, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Sexy Aging podcast, and I'm excited for this episode. And I just want to give a shout out to any listeners. Don't forget that there's a survey and a poll at the end of every episode. So let us know how you feel about the content that we're putting out. Any questions that you've got, you can always reach out to me in the Spotify questions. Thank you so much, Niki.
Kia ora.